afternoon, and welcome to the webinar on industry and company research. My name is Hiromi Kubo, Business and Economics Librarian at Fresno State. I also have Dave Picason is coming here now, my colleague librarian, also at Fresno State. Today we are showing some of the most valuable databases that will be helpful for your industry and company research. And if you have any questions during or after the webinar, please feel free to let us know. I want to start from the databases for company research. So today I'm going to go over 4 different but very valuable databases from our library, and Business Source Premier, Merging Online, Merging Intellect, and Reference USA. But before even starting it, let me tell you a little bit about how we start company research. So how you approach company research will differ based on the type of company you are looking for and the type of information about the company that you are interested in. So the first and fundamental question to consider when starting company research is whether the company is public or private. So this question will ultimately determine how much information is available about the company, as US regulation states that any publicly traded companies must submit informational filings to the Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC. So these filings include information related to the company's finances, company's history, organizational structure, executives, subsidiaries, and much more. And these filings are publicly available through the SEC's company filings online portal called EDGAR. And so, simply put, far more information about public companies is available to the general public than information about private companies because of this regulation. And along with public companies, private companies with more than 500 owners and more than $10 million in assets are required to submit this SEC filing. However, small and mid-sized companies, private companies, excuse me, that are not included in this category are not required and to file this information to the SEC section. So, and besides, since private companies are not traded on exchanges, they tend to garner less interest from analysts and news outlets. So this all leads to far less information that is available about private companies. All right, then another type of company to be aware of is a subsidiary. So the definition of subsidiary is that subsidiary is a company that is controlled by a parent or a holding company. For example, Pixar Animation Studios is a subsidiary to its parent company, the Walt Disney Company. So the Disney happens to be a public company. And when a public company submits its filings, it does so for the entire company, which means most of the information within that filings will be a broad level overview encompassing all of its operating subsidiaries. They are not required to break down the costs, revenues, and other details of each individual subsidiary companies. They might do so, but we can't always expect to find those details. So because of this, researching a subsidiary has more in common with researching a private company than researching a public company. Also, it should be noted that there are far more private companies in the US and in globally as well, and subsidiaries than public companies. As of 2015, there were less than 4,000 publicly traded companies on major US exchanges, while there were 27 million registered firms in the US. So just remember that. All right, then with that in mind, let's take a look at these databases for locating company information. And I want to go back to the library's homepage. Yes. All right, great. Thank you. All right. So this is the Fresno State's Henry Madden Library's homepage. All databases particularly are listed under this databases list, either by subject or A to Z list for all databases. But for finding business focused databases, go to this databases by subject section and then select business and the subject list and find the list of business focused databases. Databases are categorized by most useful article databases and also useful article databases, databases for company and industry profiles, and some more. For company research, particularly when the company you are looking for is a public company, then the database called Mergent Online, it would be the best place to start from for searching. And it is located or listed under company and industry profiles databases. Mergent Online here. Mergent Online provides detailed profiles of 25,000 public and private but large-sized private companies information. So this is the interface of the Mergent Online. For finding information about a company or companies, simply type in the company's name in this search box or ticker symbol of the company if you're familiar with. Let's use Tesla as an example. I type in Tesla and found 3 companies' name, but I know Tesla Inc. is the company that I want to find information about. So I click on that. What we see here is in the front page is like a snapshot of the company with business summary, key executives brief information, and some stock related information, price summary, key financials, and the most updated news down here. Or you go further under company details, you will find information such as company's history, let's see, subsidiaries, that, long-term debt, and others. When we go to executives section, we see like buyer of the major players in these companies in this PDF file, or some more information like how many years this person, this CEO worked for this company, types of information, and what the compensation history is. ownership section gives us the information about the major holders of this company's stocks. Company financials is, of course, more details about the financial information of the company. And filings, I skipped report. And reports, these are from the SEC's filings. You find all in different document formats. News section. Let's see, click on that. It's about the latest news and news on business influencers within this industry and market drivers. So for instance, Volkswagen, one of the competitors of Tesla. When you click on that, then we see news about Tesla, but with focus on Volkswagen, and the more news about Volkswagen itself. Oops. All right. Competitors and report builders section. These are for you to create your customized report or list of competitors. So for instance, these are already listed potential or actual competitors of Tesla. I want to add Toyota here. So let's add Toyota. Choose a company already. I thought I did. Oh, yeah. All right, so now Toyota is one of them, and then the information Toyota besides other competitors are listed here, and you can download and print out. Or in the report builder section, this one, you're creating your own customized report about Tesla, removing unnecessary information or adding the information you want to add to your own one. So you can create your own report. So this is Margin Online. And then let me go back to the library. I should have kept the libraries. Let me show you one more database that is very helpful for finding information about public companies and large companies. That is called Business Source Premier. Let me see. Right. Business Source Premier has its a section only about finding company profiles, or you can do search using this search box as well. But let's quickly show you what we find here. So I click on the company profiles section within the Business Source Premier database and type in, say, Starbucks. Browse and then open the PDF section, and it gives us a pretty nice, clean, but detailed analysis about this company. And often they are pretty updated. Like this report came out in June 2017 from the Market Line, which is one of the very well-known, very best companies in analyzing companies, corporate. So what I really like with this report is, besides this detailed information about the companies, this comes with the SWOT analysis. That's really help when you are doing your own analysis about this specific company. 50 page long, it's just use that. All right, here you go. So as you see, pretty good analysis and updated analysis about these companies here. Right? Business Source Premier is not only for company profiles, but also all types of news, articles from newspapers, magazines, trade magazines, and scholarly journals. For that, simply use the front page and type in the company's name here. A small trick here is to change the search field to company entity. This way, the database recognizes Starbucks as a company's name, not as any other meaning. Then here we find, I said articles, but it also comes with videos and audios as well. Much information here. Right. So those two databases are, again, pretty good for finding publicly traded companies and large-scale private companies. But if the company you are interested in is more small size or middle size private companies, then these databases might not be the best place to find information about. In that case, database called Intellect will be the great place for finding information about particularly private companies. This database covers information on over 300 million businesses globally with a focus of private companies. Let's take a look. Right, so this is Intellect. And when you scroll down a little bit, you will notice that this database is actually a combination of company research and other types of researches, such as demographics and consumer research, residential research as well. But let's stick with company research today. Let's type in a company's name here. Let's say Blue Bottle Coffee, one of my favorite coffee shops in San Francisco. And it's still expanding, but not as large as Starbucks or Peet's or others. So here, what we find is a company's overview section gives us key information. And then some news, updated news about this company. And then, let's see. And then company brief is about the competitors and market drivers. Pretty similar interface as the one we've already seen in Margent Online, because these companies are created by the same Margent company, but the contents or the companies that are covered are different. And then under financial details, it gives us sales value, volumes, and number of employees. That information. And industry details about the industry, which is coffee manufacturing, executives details. Gives the information about this, the major key players in this company. So this is Margent Intellect. And then there's another database called Reference USA that is similar to Margent Intellect, covering or providing information about private and private companies in small or middle-sized scale. Let me go back. Here you go. Reference USA is here. This database offers information about 44, or it's now actually 49 million businesses, which is good. And like Mergent, Intellect, this database also gives us a combination of multiple data sets besides businesses and others. But let's use this US businesses for our research today. This time, I will use a Mexican restaurant, one of my favorite Mexican restaurants in Fresno. It's called Rosa Linda's. And then I specify the location as Fresno, and then the result. All right, Rosa Linda's Mexican cuisines here with then actual address and phone number. But let's take a look at the detailed information. Right. So industry profile section tells us what exactly this company or this restaurant provides, the services, and then business demographics section tells us how many employees there or some other information. And then expenditure section gives us estimated annual expense, for instance, for advertising or for rent and leasing, those information. And that is followed by the sales volume and number of employees and some business histories information. As you notice, comparing to the Mergent Online, we don't see as much information as we've seen in the Mergent Online about private public companies. However, again, it's pretty hard, often pretty hard to find information about private companies, particularly when the private company is small size. But just remember, we have these databases that could give us some information about these even small companies. Okay. So now Dave is going to go over some industry research databases.
Okay, hello everyone out there. I'm Dave Tickerson. I'm Dave the librarian, as you can see. And okay, we're getting it readjusted. I'm a lot taller than Hiromi. And I assume you can hear me out there, so that's good. While Hiromi's resetting the screen for me, something that we do want you to realize, we are librarians here at Fresno State, and we are demonstrating resources that we have available at Fresno State. If you are located elsewhere and do not have easy access to us, your library will have similar resources, probably will have some of the same databases, but you may not have all of the things that we have here. If you are affiliated with Fresno State, you have access to all of these resources by going to our campus homepage and the library homepage. And then you can go to our database list, select the database that you want, and when instead of going straight in, it will ask you to log in with your Fresno State password and login. That will put you in. If you are located somewhere else and not affiliated with Fresno State, you will need to go to another library. All of the CSUs have some of these databases. Mergent, for example, I believe is available at every CSU. That Hiromi is saying yes. So and so you can get that at any CSU campus. So if you live elsewhere in the state if you live in LA area, or if you live up at Humboldt or Arcata, go to your closest campus, and you will be able to use these resources, whether you are affiliated with the campus or not. Now, I'm going to show you industry information. Hiromi's pulled up the industry page that we have. Just like she showed you 4 databases for company research, I'm going to show you 4 databases for industry research. And most of the time, people who are doing this type of research want both. You want to know a specific company or companies, how they are doing, but to understand it, you need the industry, which gives you the background and the context for the performance of your company within that industry. And industry information is not always easy to get. If you have access to these databases, you will have good industry information. But the definition of what the industry is really will define the amount and quality of the information that you are going to get. So if I am doing the airline industry, that's going to have huge amount of information, and I may use that as an example in some of these. But if I'm doing something about a company that flies packages between small towns in the US and Canada, that's a very narrow industry. So just beware that you may have to step up the level of what you are calling your industry to get comparable information for the industry as a whole. Okay, now I want to go into the databases, and Hiromi's very generously hitting the computer for me to get me back to the web page. The 4 databases I'm going to cover are the 4 that you see on your screen there: IBIS, Mergent, Standard & Poor's, and Value Line. Okay, so now you can see the database list. Is that correct? Yes, people in the room are saying yes, that's where we want to be. That's good. And again, this is a guide that Hiromi put together for people here at Fresno State. If you are using this at another CSU or another library, you might, or well, you will definitely see a different listing. But what you want to find is this database on the database list of the library that you are using at that time. And so I'm going to go, since Hiromi did two other pieces of Mergent, I'll start with Mergent for industry information, because Mergent is pretty good for industry information. And you will see an interface that's similar to what you've already seen. But the industry part of Mergent is called the Mergent First Research, which is this one right here. So let's go into that one. And Mergent First Research is one that takes persistence to get into, at least on our campus. It might be different elsewhere, but here it's telling me to continue. Then it's telling me that I'm going into Mergent First Research, which I guess is nice if I click the wrong link, but most of the time I know where I'm going. Continue. And now it tells me about Mergent First Research, and when I finally hit submit on my 4th click here, I am now in the Mergent database. And this, the first research is the segment of Mergent that's devoted to industries. And so what you can do is you could search or you could browse for industries. So since I mentioned airlines, I'll just jump into airlines. I need to, there, get where I can see a little better. That's good. And what Mergent is doing is providing prepared analyst reports on the industries that they cover. And even with just airlines, you can see there are a variety of airline components. There's aircraft leasing, aircraft maintenance, aircraft operations, travel agents, transportation. The one I want is what we all think of, a United, American, Delta, Southwest, the airline industry. That is the first one on the list, which is why I picked an industry that starts with A. So now I'm into the Mergent report on the airline industry. And that report contains many, many pieces, and they nicely segment those so that if you want to find a specific component of the industry, on the left side here, they will give you, you can jump right to that part of the report. And those of you out there watching this, you are business people, so you guys are in an industry. You probably know your industry pretty well. Hiromi and I deal with students a lot of the time, and students are familiar with an industry but don't have the in-depth knowledge that you guys do. So the industry overview is often very helpful for students. But for you, if you're looking at an industry that you're less familiar with, the industry overview is a very nice summary of what's going on. So here I'm in the airline industry, and it's telling me about the competitive landscape, competitive advantages, companies to watch, and that includes American, Qatar, and Southwest. It gives me sort of an overview of the industry. This doesn't have that many pieces. There's 70% is domestic passenger, 20% is international passengers, and 10% is something else, which in this case I'm sure is cargo. But it gives me a nice overview of what's going on. And many of these reports are aimed at people who want to invest in an industry. And you will see that in all four of the databases that I will show you, is that it's aimed at investors. So it's got a lot of financial information, which when I'm looking at an industry, that is something that I want to see. But if you're not as interested, you can skip that part. But if you just want to know what's happening in an industry, if you can find the Mergent Industry Report, go to the overview, you've got a great up-to-date review. These are updated quarterly. So at most, it is 3 months old, which is pretty good. So, if you want more, if you come back a few months later, you'll get the next update. And in fact, here's the quarterly industry update. And these are more or less news items. Okay, September 7th, 18th, June 19th. These are major things that have happened that have affected the industry. And this will vary every time the report's updated. It's going to be different. The critical issues, if you're involved with the industry, you're going to want to know what's affecting the industry. And Mergent believes that profitability depends on business and consumer travel. That's how the airline industry works. They want those business customers because they are the most profitable, but they have to also provide a service for vacationers like me. And so they have to balance that, and how each company is trying to do that. And the fuel costs go up and down. And the higher the fuel cost is, the less profitable the industry is. So those are things you might have thought about, but Mergent has pulled those out as the two key critical things in the airline industry. There's also an industry opportunities. And in here, these are things that are happening. I don't even know what you call trends, maybe. But for example, this one, fuel efficient aircraft. Obviously, if fuel costs are an issue, the more fuel efficient your aircraft are, the more profitable your company is going to be. And the one that those of us consumers hate, ancillary fees. Used to be, you got your seat, you got your bag, everything was in the price of the ticket. Well, airlines, of course, now charge $25 a bag, and that's a way that they make more money without actually raising the price of the ticket, because now they charge for food, they charge for a reserved seat, they charge for anything they can think of to charge you for. I personally do not like to fly, so this this really irritates me when I do. But these are things that are happening in the industry, and giving you an idea of what to look for when you're looking at your company. Does it use fuel-efficient aircraft? Does it charge ancillary fees? Southwest does not charge extra fees to this day, and they use that as a way to market their service, and a lot of people like Southwest because whatever the price of the ticket was, that's what they're going to fly for. Now, the part that I really like, and if you're involved within an industry, those of you are going, is you want to know what's going to happen in the future. And so Mergent, as all of these services do, gives you a forecast of what their analysts feel is going to happen. So here in the airline industry, we have a forecast here. We are last year, this year, which is, you realize isn't over yet they've already predicted a 5.2% growth for this year and growth for the next 5 years. If you are interested in investing or you want to know what's going to happen, that forecast can tell you what this analyst feels is going to be the future of the industry. And so this is the Mergent database. Let me get out of here. Looks like, oh, I can't get out of there. I'm going to jump back to Hiromi's database list. So I've left Mergent. The next one I want to show you is the Standard & Poor's. And Standard & Poor's, yes, that is the Standard & Poor's that you hear about every day, the S&P 500. It is that company's industry reports. And it's under the Net Advantage is the name of their database product. This is also a database that you can analyze companies. In fact, I would say it's probably primarily aimed at companies, but I have always thought of it as a good place to go for research for industry research. And their page has recently changed. And so if I get confused, I apologize in advance. As all these databases do, they're constantly updating. The part that's the industries is the industry surveys. And Standard & Poor's has a set of industries that they analyze also quarterly. And they've analyzed them for years, and they have experts on each of these industries. And so when I go into the industry page, it looks a little bit scary to me with all of these reports. Each one of these is a report. So what I like to do is sort it by what they call the headline, which is actually the industry. And if I scroll down just a little bit, there are 200 and I can't read it because it's 250 something industry reports available here. That does not mean 250 industries because they do every industry quarterly. It means probably about 70 industries that they do repeatedly. But I'm going to go to the latest airlines report since we just looked at one. This was from June 16th of this year. And I am now in the PDF, so it's a static file, just like the Mergent file was that Hiromi showed earlier. I want to make it bigger so we can see it. And this is the equivalent for industry. And you can see it has the same sort of categories that were available in the Mergent report. So we have the industry overview. We have, it's not showing, okay. It has this, I'll keep talking while they figure out the showing. It has the same category. So there's an industry overview and industry trends. There's the key industry ratios and statistics. Tommy and I do this with students. And so with the parts about the Standard & Poor's that are fantastic for students, which also means they're fantastic for people less familiar with an industry, are two parts: how the industry operates. So it's Standard & Poor's basically teaching how the airline industry works, and how to analyze a company in this industry. So when we work with students, I often give them the Standard & Poor's first, because not only does it tell them about the industry, it tells them how to think about the industry. And if you out there are going to be investing or looking at an industry that's not your main industry, these reports are great for learning how an industry operates. And they do have, if I'm gonna, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't go so fast. Just give you a feel for what's in here. Standard & Poor's is good also about giving graphical summaries of data. So here, earnings before interest, the EBIT, it's got it from 2006 up till now, and comparing it to the average of all industries. So you can see the airlines were bad. They've gone up and down tremendously, and now they're really making a big profit because they charge us extra for everything they do. But that's how they're making it. But if you're going to invest, that is how they're making their money. You also get a lot of tables that are specific to an industry. So in here, we see for the last 2 years what's happening. So passenger is by far the biggest revenue source for the industry, but you see cargo is like, less than 2% of all revenues. But you can compare a couple years worth of data to see what's going on. And the Standard & Poor's reports, they're static reports. Once the report is issued, that's the report. But again, they're updated quarterly, so you wait 3 months, you'll get the latest update with new data and new news and new information about the industry. So that's the Standard & Poor's. Standard & Poor's defines the industries broadly. So there are fewer industries in Standard & Poor's than you will find in Mergent, and far fewer than you're going to see in the next tool I'm going to show you, which is the IBIS world. So now what I want to do is show you the Cadillac of all industry databases, which is IBIS world. It's also by far the most expensive of all of these databases, which our library pays for because it's a great tool for our students and our faculty. This may not be available in other libraries that you visit. So I'm just giving you that disclaimer to start out. So let me get back to our database. And IBIS World covers 1,200 industries. Mergent had 500, S&P had like 75. And so now I'm in the IBIS world, and it is sharing, correct? Tech people, yes, it is sharing, good. And this is a fantastic database for industries, and it's also a global database for industries. So if you were growing a crop here in California, and you want to see what's happening in China or Australia, you could see right here it's got reports for other countries and for the world. I'm going to focus on the US side because that's what our people are usually doing. And so I'll show you how to find some industries. There are several different reports here. The NAICS code, which is the industry classification done by the government, is perhaps the most common. And if you have a code, you could just type it in. But what I like here is that I like to browse. I like to see what are all of the industries that are included. So this case, because they get specialized, I'm going to go under the ag category. And in Fresno, that's one of our biggest industries, if not the biggest in our region of California. So it's an important industry for us. And so when I go into ag, you can see it breaks it down into some very specific industries. Corn farming, cotton, it's got ag business, it's got even beekeeping. Now that's way more specialized than I would have ever even looked in here for, but it's there. I'll go into the, let's see, let's pick the fruit and nut farming. That's the one That's again, a big industry here in our region of the state. And so this takes me into the IBIS's report on that industry. And they're very cute because right now the headline is that this industry is peachy keen. And because, and they give you, reasons behind their analysis, because average consumer disposable income is going up, people will buy more fruits and nuts because those are sort of non-essential food crops for many people. And so it tells us what's going on with the industry. They're also really good at infographics. So if you want to see sort of visually an industry, here's what drives the industry, here's the supply side, here's the demand side, and then it's got some other related industries. And sometimes, depending on what industry you're looking at, they'll link to international issues that are related to it. In this case, it's just fruit and nut farming in the US, so there isn't an international side. It will tell you the major companies, and in this, because so many fruit and nut producers are small companies, there's no dominant company, and it tells you what's the industry is about, and again gives you similar industries. Along the top, there are a number of tabs, and it does the same sort of review that S&P and Mergent did. So I can do industry at a glance, but instead of a text industry in a glance that Mergent and S&P gave me, it gives me a beautiful graphic report on the industry. And right here, I can learn a lot about the industry just by looking at these charts. And then if I want to, like here, price of fruit, if I click on it, I can go get the whole report that goes with that graphic that was on that first page. And it tells it has an executive summary, so somebody who's providing this to your boss or the president of your company, here's the part you want to copy and paste for your president. And it tells us exactly what's happening right now in the fruit and nut industry. It has, again, industry performance, and similarly, it's got the charts, it's got the text to explain it, what's going on right now. You see it gives you about, well, in this case, a 14-year run. It goes back 8 or 9 years, and it goes forward another 4. You see the graphs level out because they don't know what's going to happen, but those are projections. And with this, you get a real detailed understanding of your industry. And again, the piece that I look for, I always want to see the industry overview, or in this case, industry at a glance. And then I want to see the industry outlook or the forecast, because that's where this analyst, which is the IBIS in this case, is saying what is going to happen in the future with this industry. And so they've written out factors that are going to affect the industry. If people are eating healthy, that's good for the industry. If production is improved, that's good for the industry. Trade, that may or may not be good for the industry. If we're importing more fruit and nut, it's probably worse for our own growers, but if we're exporting a lot, that's good for our growers. And they will again give you data forecasting what's going to happen. And very nicely, you see this little green circle, you can export that data into Excel. So if you were going to do some of your own analysis, most of these tables you can download in Excel, and then you could add your own data or resort it, remanipulate it, do what you want with it. But it gives it to you in a format that's very usable. And I didn't show that in Mergent, but Mergent does that as well. And then it gives some graphical views of the industry, some of which require a lot just to understand it. I'm not quite sure. In this case, fruit and nuts obviously a growth industry, and it's actually a way above average for growth, but it's also a very mature industry. We've been growing fruit and nuts for a century, So that probably is going to be less of change, but it's showing a high growth potential. Whereas if you're in some of these other related areas, they're all maybe more growth this way, but less maturity this way. Oh, growth in share of economy, number of establishments. Okay, so fruit and nuts, not going to be more establishments, but going to be a bigger contributor to the economy, whereas snack food, more establishments, less of a contributor to the economy. So these reports give you that detail and that kind of information. Another thing that they do, and because I picked fruit and nut, this may not work that well, it tells you the major companies. And in this case, there are no dominant companies, but there are some that they have reviewed. The Wonderful Company, that company is just wonderful. Bronco Wine, Dole. Dole is a company I expected to be actually in the major food company section, but Dole, although they're less than 1%, because we're talking fresh fruit and nuts, not canned fruit and nuts. That's why Dole is so small in this industry. If we were doing canned food, Dole would be one of the major companies for sure. But this gives you an idea what IBIS has. I want to show you one more database, and it's one that's been around a long time. It is aimed primarily at investors, and it covers both companies and industries. And it gives you more information on one page than anything else that I know of. That's why I always save this for last. And if you're just doing a quick review and your industry or company are included, I would go here first. And that is Value Line. The Value Line Investment Survey. This is a publication that dates back decades. We used to get it in paper. It comes out every week, or at least it used to come out every week. Now it doesn't exist in paper. But and it tells you essentially what to invest in. So let's go into Value Line. If Value Line will respond to me, there it goes. Okay, here's Value Line. And you keep in mind, this is aimed at individual investors. So if you're going to play the market, this is a tool you want to use. But if you're going to research a company that's a public company only, because it's investment stuff, and it has again, like S&P, a small number of industries, but they are the major industries. And the way this works is if I go to, let's do ADM. Oops, I'm in the wrong box. Company name goes over here. So ADM, a big agricultural company, Archer Daniels Midland. And it will give me data about that company when it responds to me, which should be any minute now. It's usually not this slow. And you can see that if you use this regular, you could set up you could create your own list of companies or industries that you want to follow. So every time you go in, you would get an update on that. And you can see somebody here had set up Caterpillar. But why, I don't know why I'm not getting ADM. Okay, now it's going. There's ADM. And it gives me a tremendous amount of data. They are very data oriented, not so much text oriented. And because these are their own analysts and it's aimed at individual investors, it's giving you rankings, which you won't get from the other tools. So ADM is an A+ financial strength company. It doesn't get any higher than that. So this company is going to be in good shape for a long time. And if in terms of safety, it's pretty good. And timeliness, well, it doesn't change a whole lot. So it's probably middle of the road. But you can get data on financial data, There's a little bit about what's going on. These are always very short. Well, it's a little bit longer than that. But, oops, okay, come back. You can see what value lines, projections. You'll notice when you get down to the stock, some of this stuff, that's the past. The bold is this year and next year. And if we get all the way down, and you can see that they do a nice job of graphically of showing where this company is. And if I move up the ladder, I see the other competitors in that industry and where they are. So it's sort of a interactive graph of the data. But if I get down to the bottom, it's got the PDF version of the report, which is a one-page report. But this is where I can get the industry. So let's look at the industry report for July 21st. This, whoops, nope, I got the, okay. Let's try that again. Okay, here's the industry report for the food processing industry. One page, that's all value line tells you about company or industry, a single page, which makes it very easy for you, the consumer, to read. And it's telling us what's going on in food processing, what's happening with investors, some graphs of some data, hello and goodbye, companies that started up and companies that are no longer existent. But then their analyst, and it tells you who it is. I have no idea who Michael Lavery is, but he writes the food processing, and it gives it tells you what they think in terms of investment for this industry. And even if you're not investing in the industry, it's good to know what analysts think is going to happen to the industry, especially if it's your industry. You know, if you're in food processing, you want to know what people are thinking about it. So that's the value line, and I think I'll stop there. And do you have questions out there? And if you do, our tech people are checking on the computer right now. And we can chat, okay. And remember, these are databases that are available here at Fresno State. If you are local, feel free to come to our library anytime that we're open, and we will give you a login to our computers, and you can use these as much as you want. You're not limited in any way. You could do a lot of research here. If you are at other CSU campuses, everybody has Mergent, everybody has Business Source, Premier. I think, does everyone have Standard & Poor's, or is that selective? Most of us have Standard & Poor's. IBIS is not as common. IBIS is the best industry database, but it's very expensive, and we believe that our students need it, so we pay for it. If you have questions, Hiromi is our business expert at Fresno State. I am her assistant.
That's so true. We both are.
But feel free to email us, and we will give you our advice on how to help with your research.
Right, we're happy to help you, so please let us know.
Thank you.